It is cover price time. On this Thursday, we are going back 4 years. All right, guys, we're going to get into this video. We're going back 4 years. This is our cover price top 10 from 4 years ago. What were those books doing then? How are they doing today? You know what to do by now. In the description down below, there's a cover price discount code. I got a discount, a $10 off whatnot code. Check out my eBay channel, VERYGARY_comics, or my eBay store. Whatever else you could find down there. We're going to jump right into this one. We're going to jump right into number 10. This is X-Men number 4 from 92. Now, this book features the first appearance of Omega Red, who has been rumored to appear in a few different projects over the years. While this book has been an inside joke for many fans, this book was selling very well in 2020. Fast forward to 2024, and prices have dropped from their previous highs. A nice near mint raw copy can be purchased for $20 today versus the $25 market price in 2020. Graded copies have taken an even more of a hit, as current prices, 9.8s, are less than $100. It's nearly half of what prices were in 2020, making this book a bust 4 years later. There's still hope for seeing Omega Red, though. As the X-Men become more of a focal point for the MCU, they will need villains, and Omega Red is one of their most popular. This is a Jim Lee book. Jim Lee will be at Terrificon in August. I love this cover. I love this book. $20 to $25 raw in a near mint copy is probably where it should be because there's millions of these books. 9.8's under $100. Should be about $100 to $125 book. So it's about where it needs to be, where it should be. Now, with X-Men 97 being absolutely awesome, Omega Red could show up at any point, but we want a real life, live adaptation of Omega Red. We're getting an X-Men movie someday. We know that's happening. A lot of love around the X-Men right now, so don't be surprised if some of these keys start trending up slightly. And I want to preface all this by saying, don't do what I say. Take what I say with a grain of salt. Buy what you like. Buy what you're interested in. If you have faith in a book and increasing in value and you want to turn around and flip it, do your research first. Do your research first. Don't do what I say. Let's get to number 9. This is Countdown number 31. This book contains a short origin of the Joker alluding to 3 Jokers. This bit of information tied into the 3 Jokers story that we saw raw prices rise to $15 in 2020. Prices today have settled back down to cover the price for raw copies and a graded 9.8 sale of $60. This drop in price makes this book a bust when compared to those 2020 prices, but we know 2020 was the beginning, just the beginning of the prices taking off. Let's get to number 8. This is Batman number 90. The designer's first appearance was one of the more sought-after books on the aftermarket in 2020. Interest in the new villain saw raw copies sell for $21 and a 9.8 sell for $125. 4 years later, fans have essentially moved on from the designer as his storyline ended, and fans met the reveal with lukewarm reactions. Prices are now less than $10 and for raws, and graded 9.8 recently sold for $25. I had to check that number twice, but it is in fact a real sale. This book is easily a bust 4 years later. Maybe another writer will revive the character eventually, leading to renewed interest. I always liked Mr. Bloom from the New 52, the Capullo-Snyder run, who will both be at Terrificon. This is like one of those characters that had a lot of hype behind it and then is gone, and like it's still out there, I guess, still exists, but we'll see if somebody picks up the mantle here. Let's get another Batman book here. Let's get to number 7. This is Batman number 412. I'm liking all this DC love. There was much Punchline speculation in 2020 that the Batman villain Mime was either Punchline or at a minimum had some connection to her. While this was a long shot, collectors were still intrigued enough to buy copies, pushing the book on the aftermarket to $36 for raw copies. As more of Punchline gets revealed over the past 4 years, it's clear there are no links to Mime. Raw prices have fallen to $6. With no 9.8 sales over the last 2 years. This drop in price makes this book a bust 4 years later. I remember people going crazy over this book, and it was a dollar bin book. You're talking about a Copper Age minor Batman key. Dollar bin book, maybe $5 to $10. The price is where it should be right now, without a doubt. Let's do more Batman. Let's go to number 6 on our list. We're moving right along with this one. This is Batman number 89. The first cameo of Punchline was moving a good bit on the aftermarket back in 2020. The new villain was popular amongst collectors and fans alike. Raw copies were regularly selling for $35, with a graded copy at 9.8 selling for $150. Moving forward to 2024, we see raw copies remaining close to 2020 prices, while graded copies have taken a slight dip when compared to 2020. 150 versus the 89 today. This book is a push for raw copies, minor bust for graded copies 4 years later, but Punchline should be a mainstay in the Batman villain lexicon for years to come. So there remains a chance that those graded copies climb back up in price. What was I going to say here? Oh, the trend here that we've been seeing all week in these videos is that a lot of the raw copies are either trending up, staying the same, or trending slightly down. And a lot of the graded 9.8 stuff has dipped significantly. All week, if you've been watching the videos all week, you're seeing the same exact trend. So think about it. Think about it. Let's get to number, where are we? 5? Halfway already. Let's get to number 5. This is Nightwing number 70. DC for days on this list. This book hit big pre-sales when Diamond issued the word Punchline in their solicitations for the book, which caused fans to rush out and pick up copies, thinking this would finally be her first full appearance. This caused prices to spike quickly, with raw sales eclipsing $20 for raw copies. While Punchline does not appear in this issue at all, somehow prices are still at $13. They're still there 4 years later. Prices for graded copies have dropped from the highs of $60 down to below $45 for a CGC 9.8. This book is a bust 4 years later with very little reason for future growth, yet it still has some value. I don't know why. Maybe it's the cover. I don't know. I don't get it. We're going to get to number 4, a Marvel book now. Let's go to number 4. This is Fantastic Four number 352. This forgotten key issue features the first appearance of the Minutemen police force, which appeared in the Disney Plus Loki series. This issue had a high sale of $20 for Near Mint Raw, as anticipation for the series was extremely high. 4 years later, and this book, while cheaper than 2020 prices, remains around $13 for a raw copy. This issue was a minor spec, but fans universally adore the Loki show, so that may be why prices have at least remained steady. This slight drop makes this book a bust, but the TVA will be returning in Deadpool 3 and beyond, so prices could possibly move back to where they were 4 years ago. But you can't be upset about an early 90s key issue, which I think we can all agree, it's a key issue. It's the first Minuteman. Somewhere between $10 and $20 for a near mint. That's great. That's, minor key. Don't, it's not the first Carnage from the early 90s or Gambit, but still, minor key, FF book. 10 to 20 bucks seems fair. It's probably right where it needs to be. Let's get to Let's get to number 3. We're going back to DC and Punchline. This is Year of the Villain, Hella Risen, number 3. Punchline was the hottest thing going this time 4 years ago. She had multiple books placed just on this list alone. Raw copies of her first full appearance were selling for $35 raw and graded 9/8, $170. 4 years later, we see this book holding steady on raw copies at about $30, while graded copies have dipped to $115, down from their 2020 prices. This book is a push for raw, bust for graded. Now, Punchline books, as stated above, have the opportunity to continue rising in price over time as she is featured in more stories. More stories, but if James Gunn decides to use Punchline, which I don't think he will anytime soon, I do expect these to climb. Now, let's get to another Marvel book. Let's get to number 2. Before we do, don't forget to check out in the description the Covrprice discount code. Use this Covrprice. Use the tool. It's fantastic. Let's get to number 2. This is the Spectacular Spider-Man number 176. Easily the oddest book we will cover this week. This book features the first appearance of Corona. Many were speculating on the actual coronavirus with this little-known character who could give her enemies a virus pretty much on the nose. This may be the longest stretch we have seen in speculation, but some were all for it as its prices soared to $40 for raw copies. Writer's note, a graded 9.8 sold for $350 in 2021. That was the hot year, though, guys. 2021, everything went bonkers. It shows that speculation is far-reaching in such a small community and can quickly affect a book and its prices. 4 years later, and to the shock of absolutely no one, prices have come back down to earth as raw copies are now $7, as they probably should be, $5 to $10 for a first appearance. Graded 9/8 are at $111 in my appearance, maybe just a tad high. This book is a bust 4 years later, but it's worth noting that the 9.8 price is still relatively good since it was an unknown book prior to March of 2020 and is most likely worth more than it ever could have been if not for this crazy pandemic purchase. COVID did ultimately put this book on the map. While it's been a running joke for the past 4 years, just looking at the cover takes you right back to this time in world history when the planet shut down, and it most likely will be for the considerable future. This book was silly, and it's silly if you guys paid too much for it. It's a extremely minor Spider-Man character. $5 to $10. I would think this should be somewhere between 80 and 100 for 9.8. It's averaging just slightly above, so it's probably about right. We're going to get into our number one book from 4 years ago. This is Spawn number 306, the Gunslinger variant. This McFarlane variant features one of the more popular Spawn iterations of Gunslinger Spawn on the cover. For many Spawn fans, this was an instant buy. Copies were flying off the shelves, and the aftermarket prices reached highs of $40 raw and an all-time high of $350 for 9.8. Moving to 2024, this book is still rolling and selling well. Raw copy prices are $85. Copy graded 9.8 surprisingly can be purchased for less than $100, $81 to be exact. That was the most recent sale. We checked these prices multiple times and verified that a graded 9.8 can indeed be purchased for essentially the same price as a near mint raw, which makes no sense unless there's a Todd signing coming up that we don't know about. That will help. The increase in raw prices makes this book a boom 4 years later, as the graded prices are currently a steal versus ungraded. The trend, guys, we're seeing raws, again, climb or stay even or a slight decline. We're seeing those 9.8s drop dramatically. And again, I think everyone was just overvaluing the 9.8. That's what it was. I think they're where they need to be right now. With that, we are done. We're coming back tomorrow, Friday, the last day of Cover Price Week. We're going back 1 year. So we did 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're going back 1 year. We're going back to 2023. Thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, keep it comics.